districts. We are the last man standing to do 100% of insurance and to cover that. So I think that's a huge thing that we need to highlight for our school community, because that is definitely unique about our district. And our commitment is to make sure that we continue with that when we can. I just think that that's something that we need to highlight, because thank you for your work. And thank you for all of the work that y'all are doing. It's huge for our employees. So thank you.
I'm going to walk up here because I think I'm going to be able to see it a lot better up here. So thank you for having us today. We appreciate, first off, we appreciate your business, and we're super excited to have been selected as your consultant. You know, again, I have a history with the district. I love it down here. You guys, you're special. You kept yourself out of TRS, which I commend. A lot of districts right now are kind of looking around and wondering kind of what they're going to do next. We're trying to help some of them, but I just wanted to say thank you. Hayden Parkane is with me. Hayden's kind of my right-hand guy. But we're excited to be here today. Christina would have been here, Christina works very closely with Rachel and Ida and Tita from Blue Cross. She is pregnant, and I threatened her not to come down here. She's due in about 2 months, and so she sends her regards. So the presentation we put together for you today, we're going to give you just kind of a claims update. As Mr. Mendoza said, we'll talk a little bit about the renewal with Blue Cross, which I think hopefully you'll find favorable. Also going to talk about wellness programs that the HR team are looking at really trying to kick off this year, and then hopefully have wellness as a theme in the years to come to add more programs, and then ultimately kind of the recommendation on where we go. So looking at our medical pharmacy historic plan year costs, so from January to December standpoint, if you look in 2021, we had about $13,205,000 in medical claims, about $5.2 million in pharmacy claims. We had about $678,000 in stop loss reimbursements. So any of our individual claims that crested above our stop loss deductible, which is $275,000, the reinsurance carrier refunds those dollars back to the health plan. So when you look at it, we had gross claims of about $18.4 million. With the stop loss reimbursements pulled out, net claims were about $17.7 million. So our total net claims PEPM was $583.36. What I'll say, what we saw as an industry in 2021, coming off of COVID, most of us that are trained as underwriters, we felt like that the medical trend and the pharmacy trend was going to be pretty steady. It was still going to be like maybe 6% medical, 8.5% on pharmacy. What we actually saw in 2021, if you talk to any of the carriers, we actually saw a medical trend probably closer to 12 to 13%. Pharmacy trend was kind of in that same range. And what we knew pent-up utilization was going to probably happen in 2021. But I think what really happened was you had people that were further along in disease state categories that didn't get caught as early. So really 2021 was kind of a boomerang year. So a lot of our clients we saw go up, and then in 2022 kind of came back down, which is kind of reflective of you guys. So if you look in 2022, we only had about 23,000 in stop loss reimbursements. So our net claims were about 17.3 million. So when we look at total net claims PEPM, we were at 564, so down about 3.3%. And then when you look at where we are in 2023, you can see through 6 months of the year, 5 months of the year. Okay. We're at 9.5 million, so up about 8.4%. When you average that out between those two, though, really about 5% over 3 or 2.5 year period.
So, in 2021, I believe we were able to recover, pinpoint some COVID-related
COVID-related
expenses.
funds.
So we were able to reimburse our fund limit of $2.1 million.
Okay. Yeah, and we had a lot of, I know for instance, Bear County's been a long time. We had a really bad COVID outbreak in the Bear County Jail. We actually had one sheriff that was about $2.5 million claimant, and we were able to use ARP funds to pay for that. So, looking at medical and pharmacy on a fiscal year basis, obviously July to June, I think you can see 2020 to 2021, we were at about 528. Obviously 2021, we had 6 months of that, and 2021, 2022, so we were up about 7.3%, and I think you can see it kind of crested down at 6.6%. So again, really looking at it on a fiscal year basis, this just kind of cuts the claims in a different time frame. So I think you can see that, again, over the 3-year period, really probably about a 6.5% increase on your PEPM, which really was, you know, if you figure medical trend, probably somewhere in the 6%, 5.5% to 6% range in pharmacy, and then probably 8 to 8.5% range. You guys were kind of in line with that really trend, if not a little bit better. Kind of looking where we are year to date on just our large claims. I think you can see we've got 2 claimants so far that are over the 275,000.
Stop. Sorry, and then you're going to pass off the
Okay, yeah. Sorry, we had one through May, and we had it updated through June. So again, and when we look at these, we kind of look at, you know, are they ongoing claims? So I think you can see number one was a stroke, which would be kind of an isolated incident, obviously probably long hospitalization and rehabilitation there. So again, that one is over specific. Number 2 is an ongoing cancer. They were on the prior year report undergoing chemotherapy, so that would be a claim that would probably kind of be ongoing, as well as number 3, which is a heart failure or heart condition. Again, so a lot of these, you know, when you do see some of these, the ones we look at, you know, obviously non-traumatic bleeding in the brain, that's going to typically kind of be a one-time situation. We do have some cancers on here, which is not uncommon under your size. We obviously kind of had a burning situation, which again is not, you know, not uncommon. But you know, again, your large claims look less this year than they did in the prior year. That's a good thing. And this kind of helps us show that a little bit. So when you look at our utilization by service category, you can see we got current year here, prior year here, and then the increase or decrease. So I think you can see, you know, year over year, we're actually down in claimants at about 11. We're down in claims, and we're actually down in cost. On the inpatient side, outpatient side is up, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Do you want your claims, you know, if the claims are in the outpatient setting, they're going to be more affordable than they are in the inpatient setting. So what we're seeing there is probably, you know, less significance to these categories that are being treated on an outpatient basis. So from an outpatient standpoint, we actually have a higher number of claimants, higher number of claims. And costs, again, are a little bit higher, but again, that's where we want to see them. From a professional standpoint, we're down a little bit on claimants and down a little bit on claims. What I will show you in a couple slides is that I think we're up kind of in our wellness category, in our preventive category, so that's a good thing. So just we were down kind of a little bit in professional. And then pharmacy's up. You know, you guys are not, you know, we're about at 2609, which is 2557. Pretty consistent on the number of claims, and our pay is higher. And that is really not specific to you. Specialty pharmaceuticals continue, you know, they continue to trend at 15 to 16%. all the drugs you see on TV between 6 and 9 o'clock, those are your expensive drugs. It's funny, I'll be sitting there and when Scarizi comes on, I'll ask somebody else, how much do you think Scarizi is? And they'll be like, that's $800, but 22,000 a script. And they're like, wow, really? I said, yeah. And I said, these drugs are, mass marketed drugs. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I've got a slide that kind of shows a little bit as well. So looking at our pharmacy costs by source, you can see our generic is pretty consistent. Brand formulary is consistent. Our brand formulary costs went up. Our generic spend went down. That's not uncommon because the brand formulary drugs are becoming more expensive. So you're going to kind of see that converse. And then you can see that from a member cost sharing standpoint, because the brand formulary went up, obviously the plan is picking up the cost. When you look at it's not on here, but when I looked at it on a per script basis, so if I take the prescription divided by the number of scripts, it's up about 20%. And again, that just has an effect on the fact that some of the higher dollar drugs are, we're seeing more of those coming in the plan. I will say, I think we do a pretty good job of hopefully, making sure we're getting the right drug at the right time, which is important. So I mentioned earlier, when we look at utilization by diagnostic category, I think what's great here is in this number one bucket, health status and contact with health services, that's where all of your preventive services fall. So you can see that prior year to date you're 58, this year to date you're at 105. So you're up. That's really good. That means people are actually doing that. What we also look at here and work with from IDA is we looked at, okay, where are prevalent disease categories? How can we institute wellness programs around those to give the members, support to help them with those conditions? And we're going to talk about a couple of programs we're looking at implementing through Blue Cross that I think really help that. So I think you can see circulatory is number 2. It's pretty consistent with where it's been. Cancers are up, and again, I think you saw on the large claim, that's probably what's pushing that. But I think the areas we kind of look at when you look at the number of claims, you'll see musculoskeletal is up. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about a program called Hinge Health for musculoskeletal. And I think you can see endocrine and diabetes is up, which is not uncommon, being in Texas and especially in the Rio Grande Valley. So we will, we'll talk about the program Livongo that we're looking at implementing to help that. So again, this slide kind of helps us guide, and then when we look at kind of your top drugs by paid amount, this also helps us. I think you guys can see number 1. My daughter walks around the house. If you don't think marketing works, my daughter walks around going, Ozempic, So, what I will say about these drugs, Ozempic, Trulicity, Jardiance, those are the ones mass marketed. I've talked to many pharmacists. These are why they tend to be higher cost drugs. They are very effective drugs in helping the type 2 diabetic maintain their A1C. Okay, so you can think, okay, would I rather pay $811 up front or have their A1C out of whack and go into an emergency? Yeah. So these drugs are really good drugs. You get down to Humira. So Humira does have a biosimilar coming out this year. Problem is the biosimilar right now, the savings on the biosimilar side because of trademark is only about 10%. So hopefully as the years go, we'll see that go down. Anti-inflammatory drugs are number 2, or are really number 1 or number 2 with type 2 diabetes. We've seen them. Scarizi, I talked about. Stelara, right there. Those drugs. Plaque psoriasis, anti-inflammatory drugs. Those are the ones that are kind of mass marketed. Again, you're going to have drugs on here like Lynparza for treatment of cancer. Again, $12,000, but but, you know, again, cancer drugs are very expensive. Trifecta for cystic fibrosis, 19,000 per script. City of Abilene is a client of mine, 900 employees. We've got 2 cystic fibrosis kiddos that run almost $1.5 million in drugs just for that. But again, problem, you know, they gotta have that, you know, to survive. So it's you know, it's really, you know, it's challenging, but these drugs, you know, again, they have to have them. So, you know, when we look at this, you know, we're going to say we see type 2 diabetes, we see cancer, so maybe how do we incent people to make sure we're getting cancer screenings? You know, sometimes cancer, you're just not going to, you know, you're not going to, you know, catch it. But if we can get people doing their age-appropriate screenings for cancer, hopefully, hopefully we can do that. So, any questions from a broad brush on kind of the claims, or I could pontificate, but probably won't hear that. So moving into kind of the Blue Cross renewal. So currently, this is based on 2,574, which is most recent enrollment. So right now, our medical administration is $34.71. Our stop loss interface, 25 cents. We have MD Live at 52 cents currently. The claim fiduciary that Blue Cross takes on for the appeal process is $1, and then the well-being management is $4.95. So through the renewal and the negotiation on the renewal, their medical administration goes up to $41.22. Stop loss interface goes up a little bit, but they're coming back and including the virtual visits, also the well-being management. So at the end of the day, the total admin fee is $42.72, so that's about a 3% increase for Blue Cross. So you can see the 3.11%, so it's about $39,000 increase. But really, where the bulk of the dollars are in the savings are in your prescription drug rebates, as they're giving you credit for the prescription drug rebates. So you can see that the rebate is going up to $109.98. You may ask, why is the rebate going up? What dictates why a rebate goes up? So there's really 2 things. First is your drug utilization patterns. So you remember when we saw the brand formulary percentage up, right? What's going to coincide is the brand formulary drugs are where your rebates are. So if you see the brand formulary going up, you're going to estimate your rebates going to go up as well. So that is really it. And then also the second is that is depending on when the rebate contract is set, they may have drugs that are coming off of that contract, and they may just be going up. So those are really the 2 things that drive this. So when you look at the prescription drug rebate, the total monthly rebate credit we're getting, it's about $259,000. It's going up by about $289,000. We put these in red because typically red means negative. In this standpoint, red is good, red is positive. You know, it's kind of like Ghostbusters, don't cross the streams, but red is positive here. So you're actually going up in your annual rebates from $3.1 million to almost $3.5 million. So it's a difference of $316,000 or 17.2%. So, any questions on the Blue Cross renewal? And when we talk about it too.
You have a question?
I think I have a question. So the administrative fees, there's a 3% difference, but the percent difference in the rebates, that's actually in the right direction. I mean,
Yes.
in a helpful direction.
Right, yes.
Okay. Which
So-
brings the overall PEM down.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I think from HR's standpoint, most of the employees have been happy with Blue Cross. Not too, no complaints or anything. So yeah, so we could probably show that better next time, but yes. The 17.2 is good. The 3.1, not good.
Could be worse.
But it's a smaller number. This is a much smaller number than what this is, so.
And the key there is already embedded in the previous, like, that number is already there.
Because what did we predict it was going to be? I think didn't we like have an estimate of what we thought the increase was going to be?
Well, this is part of the 3-year rate guarantee that we had in Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We bid it out. This is the 3rd year. So they anticipated for, as far as the administrative cost to be a certain amount.
Okay.
And of course, then we wait to see what the other costs are gonna be for like the stop loss interface and so forth.
Right, and I was
But this is
gonna,
part of their 3-year rate guarantee that when we bid it out last
yeah,
year.
and I was gonna say, stop loss is the only component here, that the stop loss is not negotiated yet, because the stop loss contracts, the stop loss carrier will not buy any coverage until they have through September claims. Obviously, because they don't. Sometimes we get by with August claims. It's getting harder and harder as there are larger claims that are coming with genotherapy drugs, because they don't want it to be gotchas. But we will be back here in front of you guys probably in September, early October to present the stop loss.
And Scott, just to address as far as going out for bid, that is something that we can look at for next year, and of course, review the renewal at that time, and then as a committee make that determination, along with your recommendation, that we bid it out next year, or not.
And what I'll say, you guys are down this road now. The nice thing about being in a partially self-funded environment is you control the variables, okay? Whereas when you're fully insured, really Blue Cross controls the variables, or the variables control Blue Cross. So at the end of the day, you're paying them up front, they're holding your money. If your claims are less than your premium, they win. If your premium is less than your claims, you win, right? But, on a group your size, claims tend to be, we can project claims over time, what we call credible. So the nice thing about that is, in the days of being fully insured, you guys probably remember, it's kind of like car salesmen. Okay, they come out with 15, we can't do 15. Before they come in the meeting, they're down to 11 before they even darken the doors, But what happens with being self-funded, and you can see in the numbers that Mr. Mendoza presented earlier, is there is consistency that you can see over time. And if you're using underwriting methods that are appropriate and conservative underwriting methods, I'm not going to say that you don't every once in a while have a wild year. I mean, we will see sometimes every 5 years you may have an abnormal year. But when you look over a longevity of time, we can consistently say that your claims are going to trend, depending on that, somewhere probably on the group, somewhere between 3 to 7%. So where I'm going with that is, it's not so much, and whenever we do go out to bid, we reprice the claims, because the biggest component with the claims is the discount, right? So when you look at your healthcare dollar, only 15% of your healthcare dollar is admin related, right? So that's really what Blue Cross, you're paying them to, pay the claims, keep the lights on, answer questions, and then for your stop loss. So 85% of that is really dictated by your contracts with the local providers and the hospitals. So what we do is, whenever we put you guys out to bid, we do a repricing analysis. We take a year's worth of your claims, and we have Blue Cross reprice it on their new contracts. We would have United Healthcare price it at pricing. So what I can tell you is, knowing this part of the country, this part of the state, Blue Cross has very good discounts here. They're very well thought of in the provider community. So that being said, whereas when you're fully insured, a lot of times you're forced to go out either every year or every 2 years. You know what I mean? Self-funded, depending on your purchasing requirements. If it's a 3-year deal, if it's 3 years with 2 1 years, a lot of times, unless something goes awry, there's consistency. What I tell people is, when we typically see somebody moving is if they feel like their discounts are going in the wrong direction, or if the customer service wheels just fall off, and there's complaints. So, I think what this shows is, I think Blue Cross is, they're honoring what they've done. But really, I think the tail of the tape is when you look at your financials and you look at, positive year-end balances, that's really what dictates where the discounts are. And that's kind of what you see. So,
Do we have waivers? Do we have 3+2 windows? Just 3 years.
It was just 3 years.
So, that being said, talk a little bit about wellness, kind of what the hopes are of everybody kind of moving forward as we want to kind of get going in wellness. So I'm going to talk about a couple of programs that Blue Cross offers to Alongo and Hinchell. Clearly, my Garland ISD education did not catch the missing T there. I apologize. Or in Texas, we say partnering. Rachel and team have met with both local providers, talking to them about what kind of resources they can help with from a wellness standpoint. So partnering in health fairs, and when we do the health fairs, partnering, can you do the biometric screens at the health fairs? Also, what can they do from a local and virtual educational program for diabetes, hypertension, what kind of brown bag lunches? So really tapping local resources. And what you find is a lot of times those local resources obviously want to be tapped because they want business driven their way, but also they want to be good stewards of the community to help. So those are areas we're looking at. So, Blue Cross has a laundry list of disease management that they offer. So our approach really, you can throw them all out there. And that would be great, but our approach is always really pick a couple, with the fact that we're not recommending any benefit changes or any contribution changes. Really use the time that you would typically do enrollment meetings to really do educational meetings. Focus on a couple of programs, so as we saw, diabetes is an issue, so we're going to talk about Alongo. Musculoskeletal is an issue, so we're going to talk about that next month. Again, there are other programs that they offer. There's management programs. We felt like these two would be good kickoff programs and really to kind of focus on. So what Alongo does is they have a cardiac program too, but really Livongo, their bread and butter is diabetes support. So when you go into this program, and the way that this is billed is it's not an additional cost to the district. It's run through as a claim. Okay, so it's run through to the claim system. So what happens is, Livongo will submit a claim, but what happens is we'll trade data. Blue Cross will trade data with Livongo. So what they'll do is they'll run it through their algorithms, and they'll find the people that have diabetes or have pre-diabetes. So they'll run it through the pharmacy system, they'll run it through the medical system, and they'll identify them. Then what will happen is Livongo will outreach to them via mail or email. They'll talk to them about their program. It comes with their glucometer. It also comes with cardio blood pressure cuff. They get a health coach. This glucometer connects to their health coach, but it also connects to their endocrinologist or their primary care physician. So as they're taking their readings, it sends that data back to the provider. So all of a sudden, if they see, okay, you're bouncing around. Why are you bouncing around? Maybe you need to come in and we need to do an A1C test, to see what's going on. And then, so all the strips come through them. They have customer service support, but I think the important thing is they get tailored individual their needs are tailored and they get coached and helped. But let's be honest, I'm old school. Is everybody going to do this? No. There are people that for everyone that does this, that can stay in control, you're looking at lower costs, down the road. And like I said, it runs through, as a client. Their approach to ROI slides are always they're going to show you ROI, right? But I think what's more important is, even if you see a blip in costs up front, those are going to be low dollar costs for people going to the office visit to get them stabilized so you're preventing future costs down the road. And they have the data to show it. They, like I said, they're going to focus on diabetes. They're going to focus on pre-diabetes. And then they're also, going to look at cardiovascular. They have those three programs. And it's billed as a claim on a per participant per year. So if the member goes in, then it comes through as a claim, claim on that. So, Hinge Health. I have a personal story about Hinge Health. So I tore my ACL. I'm not going to tell you guys the story because I was 51 years old and doing something I shouldn't have been. Not playing soccer like him. I was jumping on Tinder. What Hinge Health does is they have, it's a skills digital program, okay? Virtual program. So they have basic educational programs that if a person just wants to go in there and see exercises, things like that, they can access. And then they have, an acute care program, okay? Let's say you tweak your knee, right? You're not having surgery or you didn't blow anything out, but you tweak your knee and you need limited physical therapy, okay? So they have their acute program. It's billed as a client. It's $250, and you get access to a physical therapist. You get access to that physical therapist. They have a health coach involved as well, and they give you virtual physical therapy. For anybody post-surgery, so I had my, when they contacted me, I was already in the middle of rehab. But what happens is, for someone that has back or knee pain, so if you're in the chronic program, okay, the chronic program, the claim is $995. They break it into 3 claims. The initial diagnosis is $333. After 4 weeks, if you're still participating, it's another $333. And at the end of 8 weeks, the program is $332. They're going to send you a tablet, downloaded with all their videos and everything. You're going to have a coach, PT assigned to you. They're going to send you a sensor that for whatever you're doing, your exercise, it's going to track it, send it to the physical therapist to make sure you're doing it correctly. And then they're going to send you a TENS unit called the Enso unit, which is it's a stimulation that helps with the pain. So why I say that is because I'm lazy. When I do physical therapy, if I'm not committed to being to you one-on-one, I probably will do this and eat cheese puffs while I'm doing this. So for me, I got to go to the one-on-one. For the millennial and the younger person, this is great. Maybe they don't want to go to a physical therapy place where people are around and germs are around. I want to do this in the comfort of my own home. So we've had a lot of success with this program, out there. My wife, I never used my Enso machine, and my wife's had back pain. I mean, she loves. She laughed at me, and I said, "Why don't you give it a try?" 4 months ago, and she's like, she wears it every night. So it's an app on your phone, and you can turn up the stimulation. You can turn it down. Like if she walks out of the room, I'll grab her phone and turn it up. But that's so I mean that's kind of what Hinge Health is. It's no cost to the member. Again, you get the tablet, the wearable sensors, and personalized exercise therapy and things with the Enso. And this just, again, talks a little bit about what I talked about. So they have the prevention program I talked about, which they have access to the website, educational items. You get, acute, which is kind of recent, injury, and they do a shorter physical therapy. If you're high risk for acute, you get the program I just talked about. Also, pre and post rehab. Actually, pre and post rehab isn't included. There's no charge. Again, they'll put out communication pieces. They'll try to identify people that they think will be of benefit to us. So really, these are two programs that Blue Cross had a lot of success with. We've had a lot of success with our clients. It's moving the needle. When you're talking about wellness, I work with 35 to 45 different public entities. I got people dipping their toe in the water, and I got people that are doing, they're doing result-based programs. You know what I mean? I don't have a lot to do with result-based but somewhere along that spectrum you are, and this kind of takes the first step. I would say, I would say where a lot of mine are is they do premium differentials. And so if you do your biometric screen, you get your annual physical, you check the box, and then if you choose not to do that, they do a $50 differential a lot of times to start with on a monthly basis. And then usually from there, what they do is they require both of those, and then maybe what they say is, okay, now we're going to add overlay on it. We want you to take one age-appropriate screening or test. So this is just a way to kind of get the ball rolling, along with the health fairs, to really provide resources to the employees. It was funny, we were talking earlier before the meeting, and what I'll say is, if you go out to BAM, Blue Access Framework, isn't that what it's still called, Peter?
Yes.
BAM, okay, just make
Blue
sure.
Access for members.
Things move fast. But if you go out there, they have a ton of resources out there, whether it be gym discounts, things like that, that nobody really knows. So part of it is really education on the member, is to really to have them go look at those that are available. And by really highlighting these two and offering these two, we're really kind of starting down that road of really trying to meet the member where they are and trying to provide them the information. So those are kind of the two programs. Ultimately, the recommendation would be to renew with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. We're still going to have the same network. We still get our wellness and communication credit, $25,000. They still, our rates include the well-being management able program and the behavioral health programs, for the wellness.
So, question and a few comments. The programs, I like that we're having the programs. I particularly like that they're going to look at our data and identify the pre-diabetics, because almost 100% of people who are pre-diabetic they're pre-diabetic, and so they're not doing anything because they don't even know. So that's great. I really hope that the district can use the communication strategies and support for our staff and teachers to talk about these programs and to see if we can boost. There's one thing that Blue Cross tell you about it, you've got to do that, that's important. There's another to have the district support it and encourage it, etc. So it seems like the more we can do to let people know, the better. The BAM, the Blue Access for Members, that seems like a great opportunity to promote that, like pick a program once a month and get that out there as well. Here's a resource you may not have known about. So I feel like we need to prep the system that at some point, maybe this group, I don't know, may look at like a results-based type of approach and say, okay, people, we gotta get our screening, and if you don't, so we get used to using the resources but we're not throwing that at them this year, right? And we may not even throw them at it next year, but at some point, we've got to say, 3 to 7% increase over time. We've got to be healthier. So like, anyway, and then my last comment, and we've talked about it last year, I think, when we were doing some more of the obesity, weight management kinds of things. I mean, if we don't deal with that in a proactive way, we're going to have more pre-diabetics and more diabetics and more hypertensive and more of everything. Like that's just an underlying piece of this that we can't ignore as well. So anyway, thank you.
And I think that's why, you get down to two biometric screening, because a lot of people don't do it, and they don't realize, when they get their blood drawn, they don't realize that, okay, oh my gosh, my blood sugar, my fasting blood sugar is 120, which puts me in line to be diabetic or pre-diabetic. So, I've seen a lot. I've seen it at health fairs before. You guys have heard about it. The proverbial person that walks in and literally gets their blood drawn and gets sent to the emergency room. And I've seen that. I think that's key too, because it's not so much that you're trying to. You're not trying to make them do it. It's actually, it's good for them to do it. And so you got to kind of hopefully couch the communication that way. So
we're here to support them and to guide them.
Exactly.
And I think that's the word we're looking for. We want to guide them to utilize this or to take advantage of the health fairs that we have and give them options like, if you prefer like a one-on-one, go in to a house. If you don't, use Vivanta. That's the program. Trying to work for.
And also just remember the area where we work too, right? A lot of people tend to not want to go to health fairs. They don't want to know, even though they know they're calling. And that education of you need to go, it's okay. I think that's where we need to work on. Because even when you see the health fairs come in, a lot of people don't want to go into them, and they're like, oh, get my check. And most likely there's going to be something that you might need. I'm a promoter for getting checked. I get checked all the time for everything. Probably use your insurance a lot here. But I believe that part is where even just having those conversations gets kind of like getting a movie.
This is a way to get their feet wet. They use the Longo. They don't want to go to the health fair, but they find out that they're diabetic. And then, okay, maybe I better go see the doctor. Just.
It's what I tell people all the time. Like, EAP, Employee Assistance Program. It is the most underutilized program. But what's amazing is if the person uses it and you see like how many times once they use it like 7 times because they realize it's amazing. Your overall number may be like 13%, but if you look at it, those 13% are using the crap out because it's good.
So just want to glad we learned this out, and I think we're going to do it. Let's try to make an effort, and I think if they're being encouraged by leadership in the school districts, that in the schools, that's going to be important. The other thing is let's give them data. I bet there's data that you have that shows they can save money if they do it this way, and data that shows that look at the difference. If you do it this way, this is what your A1C is going to be like, but if you do it this way, your A1C is going to be this. And people are really sometimes convinced by data, and they say, okay, because let's be honest, a lot of these things they're silent killers, right? You don't typically have a lot of symptoms unless you're doing really bad, and so it's hard to get motivated. But data, especially saving money, and especially knowing like, gosh, if I just made a simple decision to do it this way, my A1C would be 30% lower than if I did it traditional type of thing, where you're traditionally, which is non-compliance. It's basically counts.
I think also consensus of people, consensus as far as having it on our listeners. I would see a big number of employees come to the health fairs because it was like and it's sad, but it's nice to have that motivation because now they have that information that they get, and this will be good for them to get turnout with those incentives.
Sometimes you have to learn to just to the health fairs with free food. Just saying.
I remember the early days of health fair, when you would go to the health fair and there was a big thing of donuts out there, like, kind of defeating the purpose. Not that I would know.
Anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, discussion of the health plan race overview.
In your packet, you have a health insurance premium breakdown of our full plan. The premium benefits, we're looking at $502.18 per employee per month. That's translated to just a little under 17 that we put for our district for the year. This will be an action item that will be discussed later on by our board. So this is what our premiums look like for the coming year.
Anybody have any questions?
Are there, I remember you saying earlier for 502.18 is what we've paid in the past. Are there other changes at other levels though? Is it all the same?
It's all the same.
Okay.
It's all the same. Yeah, it's all the same.
Trying to look for the
Yeah.
change.
The dollar amounts in blue are the employee responsibility on a monthly basis, based on what they choose.
And they're the same this year, if it's approved for 24, same as 23, no changes.
And also the deductibles from the high plan to the low plan.
That's
All the benefit plan design is exactly, in 23, that is what we're recommending for 24 as well.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question?
I'll just ask, so the premiums we're proposing here are the same. You said something, Scott, in your presentation about the relationship of premium paid, claims made, and there being a winner, right? So if the claims are lower than the premiums, they win because they're getting more premium than claims?
Well, so in the fully insured world, in the fully insured world, that's the way it works. In the self-funded world, what basically happens is you guys those dollars come back to the fund.
They come to the fund.
Right,
Okay.
and then you guys
So
are
self-insured.
right, and then and then as you watch your reserve, if your reserve, knock on wood, everything continues to go well and your reserve grows, you can use those funds to do things like if you wanted to purchase outside wellness programs, you could use those funds to do anything related to health plan. You could use those funds. So that's the nice thing is instead of in a fully insured world, the carrier keeps it, whereas in the self-funded world, it stays with the district and you guys continue to do that. And then what happens is obviously you want that reserve in case you do have that bad year that I talked about occasionally, where your claims don't, where your contributions don't cover your claims. Then you've got that cushion, for that.
So Blue Cross isn't recommending an increase of this year. There was a pretty busy slide that mentioned the rebates that we were getting offsetting. So I'm just wondering if Blue Cross might propose something lower. I mean, if we're in a situation where we're not using it as much.
And all Blue Cross is really making is, all they're making is that administrative component.
Right.
That's all they're making. So the rebates are coming back, to you guys. And then what we do is we work with Rachel and Mr. Mendoza. We come up with plan projections as a consultant and share them with them. And then we track. So what we'll do, we at least quarterly, if not monthly, we update our claims analysis, which what you guys saw was just a small component. There's usually when we meet with them, it's about 36 to 38 slides. And then, so what we do is quarterly, we're meeting with them sure how are the claims running in line with the projections, and then comparing it to the revenues to make sure we are positive. And we do that because sometimes, like I said, we do have that. Nobody likes, I've learned this after 30 years, nobody likes surprises, especially bad surprises. So, I'd never like to go walk in front of a school board 10 months into a plan year and they have no idea and they go, hey, by the way, you guys, we need to find 20%.
This is completely different.
Yeah, right, yeah, so what we do is we work, throughout the plan year, and if we see something the right day, we just let you know that, hey, something's going on. And then what we do is, for us, data is key. So if I do see, like I'll give you an example, see that use a long time timeline in 1 year, and they spiked up. But as we drill down and we look at why did the claims go up, what we found was for their stop loss was at $250,000. What we looked at was, we looked at the past 5 years, and for 4 years in a row, they had claims between 150 and 250,000. They had about 30 claims on average for those 4 years. That year, they had 62 claims that hit between 150 and 250, or they didn't get that. So, it was a net of like $2 million that it affected the fund. But you realize that was an anomaly. But that's what we try to do. So if we see something like that, we're coming to you guys ahead of time to say, hey, we see something.
So where are we at with that stop loss? What's the dollar amount?
It's $275,000.
And then, so we're live tracking that. Is that both done internally and externally? Is there a redundancy there in that tracking?
I don't know if I'd say redundancy. I mean, we work with them, and then Self, who provides the stop loss. We get a monthly report from them as to, because with stop loss sometimes, depending on the complexity of a claim, it can take a little bit for the funds,
Sure.
The funds to come. So we're always tracking what is expected to be paid and what's actually being paid. So we track that, and then as far as the deductible, the $275,000, what we do every year at renewal is we will present to them, we'll present options. We'll say, because what we do is we run it through an algorithm that we have, is to say, okay, if you would have been at 300,000 versus 275,000, would it, where the claims sit? So we look at that over a 3-year period, and then that really kind of tells us as we look at that, is to say, okay, 275 is the right number, or you know what, we've grown, 300 is the right number. So we look at that too.
And then last question, could we figure out a way to get data on what percent of our employees are in the different plans? Because I don't know that we know that. Like employee only versus employee and spouse versus employee and family, low PPO, high PPO. I'd love to kind of see a scatter plot where all those, how many lives are being affected in that and how many are, it gets complicated, but then if we have folks that are employee only, I'd love to know, is their family covered through another option, or do they not have a family, or do they have a family and they're just choosing not to cover the family? I kind of would like to know that too.
We have that everything included on our Friday update. We can do that.
And I can say we have a majority of our staff on the plan.
Sure.
And maybe about 185 members on the And I wanted to mention, as far as being self-funded, one of the biggest advantages is that we negotiate, the district negotiates and stuff.
Sure.
So as far as with fully insured plans, I know one of the things we're looking at is the bottom line. A self-funded plan, we're looking to see what is a healthy balance that we need in our account. And so whatever increases we're passing off to staff, it's not to make an enormous profit. It's just to keep the account balanced. And so that's a big advantage that I've seen from day one that we have by being self-funded.
And just to make sure that 17.2% is good. That is rebate credits coming back to the district. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that. That's a good thing. So that's more money for you guys more money for you guys to be able to think with.
I think that the bill here is about $342,000 estimated per year. We can see.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's about 3.9 million, more or less.
Yeah, 3.4.
3.4 versus
To us.
3.1.
And just for my knowledge, that the reason for not going to bid is because of the rate guarantee. We're in the middle of a 3-year rate guarantee.
Correct.
We have one more year.
Yes. And depending on what that renewal looks like and or if the recommendation is legal, let's just get it out. That is, we'll do that probably early spring. March, we start looking at it, April, May, we start.
So this, so this one was effective January 1st, so we need to start early to make sure that we get good rates and
And have it out there for a period of time for respondents to.
And I will say, I agree with the communication on all this. I think a lot of it is people are scared. They don't want to hear what they're going to tell them once they come to health fairs. I think the bigger part of the communication is thinking about well-being, right? There's so many things that the way you feel physically is going to impact your ability to be successful in the classroom, in an office, or wherever. So I think a lot of it is that. And under our new strategic plan, like that is one of the belief statements. It's all about well-being. So as we start moving through the school year, I do think that there's a lot of opportunities to think about like how do we address the needs of well-being of people, both physical and emotional. Like how do we get that? How do we make sure that everybody is getting what they need? And I think when you think about preventative medicine, that's where you can capitalize on longevity and really sustaining success in your role, wherever that is, right? So I do think that communication is going to be key. Great resources, by the way.
Thank you. Finally, move on to an update on the cafeteria.
Thank you, Mr. Hymas, board members and committee members. This item is the last 2 pages on your packet. We discussed at our previous employee benefits meeting in May. The cafeteria plan allows for employees to pay for certain benefits on a pre-tax basis. In your packet, you'll see how the cafeteria plan works. I won't go over it in detail, but some of the benefits are an employee can tax shelter their dental, their vision, their health insurance deduction, and also their flexible spending account. By pre-taxing benefits, employee lowers their taxable income by reducing their federal taxes and putting more money into their paychecks. Currently, our cafeteria plan is from October 1 to September 30th. We will be transitioning to a January 1st to December 31 plan period, and this is going to align it with our health plan and our other benefits. So the transition, this transition will uniform all of our effective dates. So just a little bit of background on a flexible spending account. It allows an employee to put a certain amount into an account. For example, if an employee wants to contribute $1,200 a year in our current with our program, the First Financial, they get those $1,200 upfronted, and the employee is deducted $100 a month for a 12-month period. And they can use that for either co-pays, for deductibles, for medications. It's a very, very good plan to have. So in order for us to do this transition, we'll need to have two plan enrollments. We're going to have a short enrollment that will cover September through December, and we'll have that in September. We'll be communicating to staff about that. Employees will need to use their funds by December, and then we'll have our normal enrollment in October for the plan year starting in January. And it really doesn't matter when we make this change, we're going to have that gap year. So we need to close that gap by doing the short plan year, and then we start like normal. And that way, everything starts January 1 with our benefits. Okay, and we'll be communicating that to staff along with First Financial. Those who have a high balance should be receiving either email or something in the U.S. mail from First Financial telling them spend down your money so you don't forfeit any of those funds. So any questions on that?
I have a last question.
Yes, ma'am.
As a prior, this what we call it the Benny card kind of in a sense. And we were able to help our spouse or people that live in our household. Right? So when my mom needed to go, I had money in there, I was able to utilize it. This one doesn't, right?
No, they have to be your dependent.
So they have to be independent. And then before they just want to.
Yes. Any questions on the transition? Just a reminder to the committee. This is upcoming, and you have new board members in our committee now.
So it's gonna change, so in these, because they were asking me today, my staff, because I'm a big believer on the Benny card, because when something happens, you never have money, you're like,
Yes.
I don't want that to be a stop for me not going to the doctor, right?
Correct.
And so it is gonna, we're gonna align it to January, right?
Right.
So with, starting this year in 2024, January, we can put whatever money is gonna go up.
Right, and so the enrollment will happen in October for January. So the funds we anticipate for those to be available either first or second week in January. So First Financial tries to make those available to staff right away at the beginning of the plan year.
So that gap that we have, if we have $500 right now, it rolls over to that gap?
It'll roll over to that gap, but we have to be careful because, you don't want to put in 1,000 because then you have to spend 500 by
But
December.
if we have
But the
500.
rollover will continue to the next year. Whatever the IRS, I believe it's 610 for the 24 year.
So if we have 1,000, it rolls over to that gap, we can use 500, and the other 500 also to
Well,
general.
only 500, it's only going to be a $500 roll. So it's, if you have 1,000 in September, only 500 will roll. And so if in December you have 1,000, only like the 610 is going to roll. And then in order to explain that to staff, we don't want anybody to lose any money, to forfeit any money. So that explanation will be, communicated when the coach meets with the enroller.
And the good thing about that, like if you go to the store and you need to get
Oh,
medicine
yeah.
for a flu or a cold or
Mhm.
something, you can always use it. Eyeglasses, I have like 20 pairs everywhere. But because I max it out, I put the max in there.
And I personally, when I go to H-E-B or to Walmart, it'll say FSA, it'll break it down for you, so you can use FSA to buy some over-the-counter items, and so then you can pay the rest of it. I don't know how the rest of you, you've used it, Bethany?
Yeah. A good benefit.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Scott. If there's no more questions, I will adjourn our meeting.
Super meeting.